red and blue. All right. I thought you are a designer. Okay, you should know this.
I mean, you wanted a hex, right? So
I did want. Well, how am I supposed to numerically contemplate who's closer in the color value?
Oh well. Well, we do have red and blue in game, so let's check it out as we are loaded in and spawning at the bottom left-hand side for Team Liquid. It is MaNa.
And up in the top right-hand side of the map, we have the red Protoss player. It is Hellraiser. Hellraiser also setting up 1 and 0 right now in the groups. This is actually, so for those who don't know, a lot of the other groups that we're going to be looking at today, like Group A and B, they've already had all their players or most of their players play like 2 matches at least. Group D is playing a little bit of catch-up right now and is going to be playing out their second matches today. But yeah, these players have only played 1 match so far, so they're still pretty early on in the playing stage of everything. But I think we've definitely explained how this group has a lot of really good players, so winning these early matches that are supposed to be even is really important if you want to advance out.
Yeah, a really interesting detail here in the early game. Not too much differences, but Hellraiser did take his second gas a little bit earlier. Not a huge difference again. But he also got to block with his probe the second gateway of MaNa on the high ground to where MaNa had to place it in an awkward position. MaNa has solved this by actually dropping the Cyber Core to finish his wall off a little bit awkwardly, which is pretty cool from him. But before that Cyber Core went down, there was a chance that MaNa would have a very awkward wall off because he left the gap on the left. So cool little details here going on.
Yeah, one small note, I guess, about that is that it potentially get a little bit weird for MaNa if there's like Blink Stalker versus Blink Stalker action later. That Cyber Core is going to be a little bit more vulnerable. It's not the end of the world. You can rebuild the Cyber Core if you need to, but not something you want to have to do. But yeah, we got normal PvP shenanigans happening, like the pylon is going down on the low ground for each one of these players to get ready for an expansion. But MaNa's pro's actually losing out on hit points on his side of the map, so not able to drop down a Nexus immediately or anything.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, that was all pretty cool. I mean, even the probe by Hellraiser was kind of denying the forward cybernetics core, which would have made it so that if MaNa couldn't have walled off, he could have opened the depths, for example. That would have been very difficult to deal with. Now we have a second deviation of the game in terms of the next 2 units that are going to be popping up, as Hellraiser chose to go for 2 Stalkers and MaNa went for 2 Sentries. So sometimes you see a Stalker and a Sentry, sometimes you see 2 Sentries, and with 4 Stalkers, almost definitely Hellraiser is going to want to move out and apply some pressure.
Yeah, those 4 Stalkers going to be able to poke on forward. Now, theoretically, you're not supposed to be able to get a lot done over here, but sometimes you can kind of out-micro your opponent. If you hit right before, you know, maybe a greedy Protoss player delays that shield battery by a little bit, you can actually potentially get a snipe off on a Stalker or even a Sentry. MaNa's actually pushed out a little bit too far forward. The shield battery not there in time to heal, and he ends up losing one of his Stalkers. He shouldn't be losing a whole lot else over here, but it's just 3 Sentries. That's not a lot of DPS.
Yeah, and he's going to be forced to warp in an additional 2 Stalkers. He already warped in 3 Sentries, whilst Hellraiser is going to delay his expansion in favor of getting a faster Immortal. And yeah, I really like this on this particular map because it is Beckett, right? It is the shortest rush distance map that we have had in a very long time, even shorter than Submarine. And with that knowledge, I mean, the Stalkers gain a little bit of value, right? Because they're the least mobile unit, at least as compared to with the Adepts. But hey, these are pretty good force shields, yet still Hellraiser is going to gun down that shield battery, which could be really, really nice if he can get his Immortal over to the other side of the map.
Yeah, I want to note, MaNa had actually gone for Hallucinating Phoenix, so which is going to be good because he now has the scouting information to see there is no Nexus right now, so he can do things like say, I just need to abandon the natural, I'm not going to be able to defend this. But it does also mean he doesn't quite have as many force fields available right now. It's not like Hellraiser has Blink or anything, he just has the Warp Prism to try and keep these Stalkers alive, so he can't just blink up the ramp right now, but he is going to definitely be able to guarantee a kill on that Nexus and potentially just be able to camp out here for a while.
Yeah, maybe drop his home Nexus. He also has that probe up on the high ground so that he can drop a shield battery to block off these Adepts. It's a nice attempt by MaNa to do this, as Hellraiser knows now that he is containing MaNa. He will make his own Sentry for that contain. And going up the ramp, I'm not sure that that's the best idea, but hey, actually, if he has that Warp Prism, I suppose he can... Oh no, the Adepts do get in though, that's huge.
Oh, how many units are recalled? Almost the entire army is recalled. Oh my god. And MaNa, of course, is going to see this and even sees that the War Prism got recalled as well. So that was actually a critical move there for MaNa to actually allow himself to establish dominance over the natural expansion again, because otherwise it's so difficult to just move down your own ramp from that contain.
Yeah, I would have liked for Hellraiser to at least keep the sentry, just delay things a little bit longer, and maybe prioritize his own Nexus a little bit sooner as well. He didn't really get an Immortal early on. He opted for the War Prism, which is pretty cute, but that means that MaNa is all caught up in terms of Immortals, and now adding a Forge even faster than Hellraiser. So this is still anyone's game.
Yeah, a kind of crazy little back and forth in the beginning. Hellraiser definitely going to be down a few workers, but with that faster Nexus, yeah, going to be able to eventually recuperate some of that. Now, the Warp Prism moving on forward with 2 Adepts loaded on up. It's not going to be able to find a whole lot of damage. MaNa is very much prepared for that Warp Prism because, you know, he saw the Warp Prism was already out, right? He already knows that it's there. That's going to be an ever-present threat, and MaNa is definitely respecting it.
He really is, Ravi. Now we have the next tech choice, which is going to be Blink on the side of Hellraiser, a little bit quicker than MaNa's, and he does have a lot of Stalkers, so this will come in very handy. Maybe it'll allow him to take a faster third and establish himself some map control. He's still trailing behind by 5 workers, like you were mentioning before, but now making 2 at a time, whereas MaNa hasn't started production at his natural. Now he does.
Yeah. Going from here, so Paulo, what do you usually like to see from Protoss players who are maybe in MaNa's position where they have a bunch of those Immortals cranking it on out? I know there's always been a little bit of a question for Protoss players, like when do you stop making Immortals? When do you start your tech transition to maybe Charge or something else from here? Or Disruptors?
In my opinion, I mean, if your opponent is going to be Stalker and Immortal heavy, then Charge Lots gain value. Charge Lots lose value if there are chokes. This is a very choky map. So you don't want too many charge lots because they're not going to be able to all attack at once. Charge lots also lose value against sentries. So it's more of a sensing game of what your opponent has, in my opinion, and kind of trying to counter what they have, right? So I personally love charge lots. I mean, they're so cheap and they're amazing. So yeah, I would like to see those.
Yeah, it's always really interesting to me to see when players decide to actually start doing those transitions versus just go hard on a lot of Stalkers and Immortals and kind of try and make the pushes happen there. It's kind of funny because we do see both these players going for their thirds, and the magic of PvP is you got those Hallucinating Phoenixes always pumping on out and always getting you most of the information that you want. Although Hellraiser is actually scouting primarily with his Hallucinating Phoenixes for the main base, I guess looking for tech. But it does make it a little bit harder for him to see when the timing of the third base is, I guess, because of that. But I think you'll see it anyways.
Yeah, and MaNa has caught up so nicely. I mean, we see Hellraiser ahead in supply, but MaNa has had a worker lead for a little while, and he is taking his third faster. So I would have liked for Hellraiser to move out maybe even a little bit faster than this, but it's good that he's moving out now. So we'll see if he is able to find something here. The other thing that I forgot to mention in terms of charge lots and that transition is that there is a little bit of a window as Hellraiser starts getting charged before Archons are on the field as well, right? Like the more Archons, the worse charge lots get. So it's an interesting dance, and this is also a very interesting dance as Hellraiser is going to blink on forward, take down the shield battery as well as an Immortal, I believe. And that's not proving to be too fruitful as he has to tail back and run.
Oh man, I have to say, like Hellraiser in theory, like that could have worked really well, but the blink forward, he tried to focus fire down the Immortals, but the Immortals are getting picked up by the War Prism. War Prism finally goes down. Now the Immortals are getting focus fire down up here, and MaNa pulling the probes and actually trying to prevent Hellraiser from retreating. Hellraiser blinks on back, but I think at least one of the Immortals is going to get surrounded and picked off over here. It ends up turning into a very scrappy fight, and MaNa definitely loses a few workers here and there, but he keeps his Immortals alive, and Hellraiser lost his whole army, lost all of his key army units, and MaNa has been transitioning behind all this. Before the attack came in, the robotics bay was on the way. MaNa has basically survived through his tech transition, and Hellraiser is going to be behind on that now.
Yeah, there is DTs coming, however, for Hellraiser. I'm not sure how many observers we have out on the map. For MaNa, it looks like it's just going to be the one, and there is 3 bases to cover. So this could be really good for him if they are unspotted as MaNa transitions into his own disruptors. I completely agree with you. I think that that was a very daring blink. I mean, it was so surprising that I think that's exactly what he was looking for, but MaNa was paying attention, picks up the Immortals right away. And that one Immortal surviving with red HP, that really hurts because it's going to get all of his shields back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just one of those moments where if you focus fire, let's say like 20 Stalkers onto one Immortal, they all blink and they all fire their shot at the same time. So when the Warp Prism picks up that Immortal after the shot's fired, that is 25 attacks from your Stalkers that just completely disappears. Like, your Stalkers are basically might as well have been on a move command for those first few seconds of the fight. But oh my god, almost gets a Warp Prism there. That actually would have been a very nice pickoff for MaNa, not only because, you know, Warp Prism is a nice pickoff, but the DTs, I imagine, are going to be coming from that Warp Prism.
Yes, indeed. Lucky for Hellraiser, he does have a lot of charge slots, which are going to be pretty decent against what MaNa has at the moment. But hey, the shield battery is going to get picked off right away. And actually, the Disruptor shot is brilliant onto the charge slots. Yet still, the charge slots are sucking up so much damage from the Stalkers and Immortals. And the next Warpin should have Hellraiser stabilizing here. Don't forget about that Warp Prism. It's not being used at the moment. Probes a little bit unnecessarily being pulled out. The Warp Prism should have its shields back though, Ravi. So I would very much like to see it go inside the base, but instead it's going to get caught, it looks like.
Yeah, he at least does. Oh, the DT also reveals itself. And now the Disruptor, it doesn't quite get the DT, but it's been revealed.
Oh! That's huge.
Yeah, getting the Warp Prism. Oh, he recalls the Disruptor, though. That's going to be a nice save. He loses the Immortal and some of the Stalkers, so obviously costly there for MaNa, but keeping the Disruptors alive can definitely be a lifesaver here.
Yeah, this was still really nice moves on the side of Hellraiser. I really like that pickoff, right? Like, he identifies that if my War Prism's gonna go down, then I have to punish it. So they both get punched in the face, but they both retaliate at the same time. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, most definitely. I also want to note that during a lot of the earlier attacks, we didn't quite touch upon it, but MaNa had a lot of these faster upgrades coming on forward. It's no longer the case. They're actually both have their +2 weapons finished now for all these fights, and +3 weapons about tied over here. So Hellraiser, as he comes in with a larger army supply and finding MaNa out of position, he's going to be getting into a very nice spot. But oh, the Disruptors connect on one of the Immortals, soften it up, but that's, I think, all of the Disruptors that MaNa has right now.
Yeah, and apparently no recall available because MaNa had to walk all the way back. 10 probes have fallen already, make it 11. But if MaNa gets a nice cleanup, he's still very well in this game. However, that is a very cool blink forward into a recall. And look at this, Hellraiser just all over the place. Kind of out multitasking MaNa and pulling him apart every which way. So those 3 or 4 Zealots that were causing havoc earlier, they really did amazing to open up the map for Hellraiser.
Yeah, this is also a really classic 1-2 punch move, right? You have all these Zealots that are up on the north side. You know you're going to draw your opponent's army over there. So what does he do? He warps in all the Stalkers back at home and sends them straight down to the south side. Now, MaNa tries to already anticipate a bit of this with the Zealots coming in from both sides, actually, causing a little bit of a blockade here. But Hellraiser is still getting tons of damage done right now.
Yeah, however, there's no recall this time around, so a lot of these Stalkers could get trapped. Let's see what Hellraiser can get in terms of value. It looks like he's going to be focusing Stalkers, so he is very worried, presumably about the counterattack rather than getting further ahead in economy, which I think is very much the right call because he's super, super far ahead in terms of workers. So as long as he survives now, I think he will be in a good position.
Yeah, it's going to get a little bit complicated from here as MaNa starts to push on out. And, well, Hellraiser went for the more forward 4th base compared to MaNa's, at least, which are all just kind of in a line. But this makes it really easy for MaNa to not only push in.
I don't know what that 5th base, but I mean, you need every unit that you can get right now. A lot of shield batteries, so maybe there's a little bit of misplaced confidence because these Disruptors are going to do a lot of work. There's only one pylon for the moment powering all of those shield batteries as well, and it's going to go down instantly. The Disruptor shot will be used for zoning, and these probes are going to have to be pulled and fight really soon here, but against those Zealots, they're not going to stand much of a chance. And now Hellraiser trapped by his own ramp.
Yeah, MaNa doing a great job. Even just having the Disruptors here, even if they aren't actually firing their shots, it prevents Hellraiser from just blinking forward. And now we're going to see MaNa try and charge up this ramp. A lot of his Zealots also kind of clumped up behind his Stalkers, so he eventually does just secure the kill, kills 27 workers, also cancels a base on the bottom side. Good map presence there from MaNa, and he's going to be able to get out of here. Oh, Disruptor shot!
Oh, okay. That was pretty scary. MaNa with a very good vision of that observer there, trying to be a little bit tricky. And Hellraiser now trailing behind. I mean, he is a few workers ahead, but that's not going to matter too much as MaNa will have the extra base. I would have loved to see Hellraiser evacuate that 4th base, and I think he would have still been in a fantastic position. He was something like 70 workers to 35, like double of MaNa, but now things have really equalized, and Hellraiser is struggling to find an economic lead.
Yeah, he's just going to tap out over there. GG, MaNa takes the first game as, you know, it's definitely a tough position over there. He was down a lot of supply, and I think he was feeling just the fact that he didn't have a 4th base. Like, he was getting his 4th base canceled over and over and over again, so Hellraiser didn't feel like he could make it work anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that was a little bit sad if you're Hellraiser. I think I understand what happened there is basically the disruptors, right? He really didn't have that unit to stabilize. He had to pump out Immortals, but that wasn't enough. And maybe if all of those shield batteries are ready by the time MaNa starts pushing, maybe he can hold that low ground. I was very surprised that he thought that he could take a 5th as MaNa was moving out, though.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely got pretty tough for him. Also, just, you know, the attack that he did when Hellraiser went for that initial attack at MaNa's 3rd base, where he did the big blink and everything, he was up 20, 25 army supply. He did a good job focus firing down the shield battery that was overcharged and everything. I really did think that was going to be his big moment to shine, but man, good control from MaNa, and I guess a few miscalculations there from Hellraiser cost him what I actually think should have been an opportunity to kill the 3rd, and if not win the game, like at least take a pretty substantial lead there.
Yeah, I mean, that was such a back and forth game. I feel like Hellraiser, if I was in his position, I'd be pretty upset because he had so many good moves that put him in such a good position over and over again, but then it was just kind of overkill, almost like you traded too much army for economy, right? Like it was looking amazing if he could have stabilized. It was looking fantastic if he could have just survived, and that's all he needed to worry about. But how do you survive? I mean, it's easier said than done, right? Because if you don't have those shield batteries ready, if you don't have disruptors yourself, if you don't have Archons, just basically higher tech units or a lot of zealots in an open space, it's always going to be very difficult.
Yeah, PvP has gotten into a very fun place to watch, but sometimes a very stressful place to play because it can get very chaotic very quickly. And, well, you know, sometimes players thrive in the chaos and sometimes it's a little bit tougher. But guys, we're going to be moving to game number 2 on Jagannatha. Down here in the bottom left-hand side of the map, the blue Protoss player sitting up 1-0. He's Team Liquid's MaNa.
And in the top right-hand side of Jagannath, Ravi, it is Hellraiser. You know this, Ravi. I know you've told me that you know this.
It's actually not even that. It's Juggernaut. Juggernaut.
That's what I said.
I think you said. Okay, I thought I heard Jaggernaut. You know, look.
That's what I said.
No, there's a difference. There's a difference. Oh my god. Okay. See, I was letting it go, Paulo. I was letting it go. I was letting it not be a thing, all right? Yeah. As you directly insult my heritage and every single one of the ancestors that have come before me as an Indian, all right?
Yeah,
but
do it.
You wanted to take it there, all right? Let's.
Yes.
Fine, we're here now, Paulo.
I want to learn it. So
it's okay.
Yeah.
It's like jug, like, you know, there's a jug of water.
Yeah,
not
jug.
like jagged, like,
part,
you know,
oh, I see.
lines.
Yeah. Jug.
Yeah. Jug.
Like
you're stumbling, like Nath.
Nath.
Yeah.
Juggernaut.
Yeah.
Juggernaut.
And then there's an at the end, which.
Juggernaut.
Yeah. There's an extra A at the end that, like, I don't know. I've personally never heard the A like spoken by any actual Indians or anything, but. I feel like people outside of India add A's to everything, so I don't know.
Yeah, I like it. So what is the difference between Juggernaut and what I said?
I think I heard at least Jagan.
Oh, okay. It was at the start. I see.
Yeah.
Perfect.
We got double adept opening coming out over here from Hellraiser, which a little bit of a difference. Gonna try and put a bit of more pressure on in the earlier stages.
Yes, indeed.
I always enjoy watching adept openings, but it's like the worst feeling going up against adept openings if you don't catch the adepts early on, because you're just like, oh god, this game again. Shield battery, cancel. Shield battery, cancel.
Yeah, I feel like it's so difficult to get the adepts working, but what they're gonna do is allow Hellraiser to go for that earlier Stargate, right? Because he has invested less gas into this, 50 less gas, so that's a 50 faster Stargate. So we'll see what he chooses to do with that. Most likely an Oracle or something like that to try and be aggressive across the map as soon as possible. Oh, no probe actually, no probe blocking.
Yeah. Sometimes it can act as a little bit of a bait if you have the stalkers over here to wall, but he doesn't, so gonna end up losing. Actually, only two probes. That's really not that bad. That's actually a perfectly decent trade.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. And look at MaNa. He knows that there could be a follow-up. He's gonna leave his stalkers in a very, very neutral position and add that shield battery right away.
Yeah, 6 stalkers he's going to be going straight up to over here. So MaNa is not going to be investing into a few of the other things that you'd normally get if you want to be a bit more defensive. Like, he's not going to necessarily have a super fast sentry or anything, because you know what? He's made the Warp Prism. He's looking to get hyper aggressive across the map, which is going to put him in a weird spot because their Oracle will come forward and he has a shield battery there to help defend for a little while, but he basically is going all in on this a bit.
Yes, indeed. We'll see how it works out. I mean, I like what Hellraiser is doing as well on the other side, identifying what MaNa is doing very early on. Actually, has walled himself off with a pylon and adding that second shield battery is pretty cool. I mean, the Void Ray is very strong at holding all in, unless it can get one shot. Those shield batteries are going to do a great deal of work.
Well, Warp Prism doing a nice job keeping these stalkers from taking any real damage. Just the shields that are going to be going down. Now, shield battery overcharge is going to hard shut down the Oracle for a little bit. Knocking out a gateway is not too shabby because remember, there was only 2 warp gates here in the Stargate. So now we're down to 1 warp gate and a Stargate.
Yeah, at the same time,
also, yeah.
At the same time, Hellraiser has or was gonna have to kill one of his buildings to get outside of his base. So MaNa also did that for him in a certain sense. This Oracle hasn't found as much success as it would have hoped with just the 2 kills. Did force an overcharge and depleted most of the energy of the shield battery, but that's just going to charge back up right away.
Yeah, MaNa is throwing down a Twilight Council over here. It looks like he's trying to micro against this army, which is really looking pretty beefy now with both Void Rays and Immortals in the mix. Yeah, I think Sentry makes a lot of sense, right? Now you just turn this into a contain and start transitioning.
Yes, indeed. I love that. And he's going to have full information as well with this observer coming in. If Hellraiser can notice, then there should be an observer popping up for himself right after. This shield battery is likely to fall if MaNa's paying attention here as the observer sieges. And we'll see that shield battery. So now with the Warp Prism, will give himself the vision. And that shield battery, of course, would have served as a staging ground for Hellraiser to walk down his ramp. So, so very well done by MaNa.
Yeah, really, really nice pick off there. Oracle comes in over here for Hellraiser and is keeping an eye on things, sees that there is a Nexus coming on up, so he should know, if he didn't already have a sense of it before, this is going into a hard kind of contain with these Stalkers and the Sentry. But is Hellraiser getting ready to move on down? If he had the Warp Prism or something over here, could let up the Immortals on the low ground and do something there. I think he's going to have to wait for that, right? Or is he going to try and move in before that?
If he's gonna move down, I almost wish that he moves down with the Immortal first, because if you have the 3 Void Rays and the Immortal, I think you can just about fight this army. So even if the Force Shield's, you know, 1 unit, which would be ideally 1 unit, and that would be the Immortal, then I think you can still take the fight. But I think that the best thing to do is to just wait for the Warp Prism, and now he has. So here, even forcing the Force Shield and still going down the ramp. Where's the Void Rays though? Here they come.
Uh-oh, Blink not finished up over here for MaNa, so it's going to be a little bit tough for him to escape out of here unscathed. The Void Ray's giving some chase, but I think it's going to get a bit dangerous if he goes too far forward, because he's not going to have shield batteries or anything to help defend his units, and he doesn't have the rest of his gateway force, so okay, yeah. He's going to finally end up retreating on back, but... Well, Natural Expansion's already finished over here for MaNa, so I think that he has bought himself a lot of the time he was looking for.
Oh,
and oh my god.
Very nice.
Did he intentionally blink past that stasis trap?
I think he did, yeah, because he saw it being planted, and I mean, if those Stalkers get stasis, it's as good as game, I think, if Hellraiser just pushes on forth. I still think that Hellraiser has an opening to push, but strangely, it's MaNa that's actually on his tail. I don't understand why. There we go.
I think he has Blink, right? So he can continue to just pick away at the units as they move across the map, and finding a Warp Prism is not a bad pickoff, because those Immortals really have a lot more of a lifeline if the Warp Prism is alive.
Yeah, and actually a third Immortal being started instead of a replacement War Prism. But yeah, the War Prism was left behind on the side of Hellraiser. I'm not sure what that was about. I thought maybe he'll go across and try to do something with it, because otherwise you should just keep it with your army.
Yeah, a little bit unfortunate there for Hellraiser. MaNa gonna continue to pick away with Blink, I guess. He's kind of playing with fire now, though, right? Like, when we get to 4 Void Rays and 2 Immortals in the army, it's like, okay, do you have the Alpha Star reflexes here, MaNa?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, it really is. And what are you going to pick off as well? I mean, you have to get in range for all of your stalkers to fire at something if you actually want to get a pick off. And if you're getting in range, then all of those units that you just mentioned are going to be firing. So very dangerous games that MaNa is playing indeed. But mostly this is just a contain to slow down Hellraiser's move out across the map, which is not really happening at the moment.
Yeah, I'd say it's, I mean...
Ooh.
Not happening is about as good as, you know, slowing it down, right? You're totally shutting it down in a sense. But wow, Hellraiser going to add on the next Stargate and go for +1 air weapons. Oh no, he's going to get high position. The sentry's here too. Oh no.
Yeah, Hellraiser can maybe gun down this sentry so that there aren't additional force fields. With this Void Race, is creating a lot of space. He actually overcharges, and a nice recall on those Immortals is actually going to serve as an amazing flank for Hellraiser. So a very cute move by MaNa, but it's actually going to backfire mostly.
Yeah, I think maybe MaNa didn't see the recall, or he saw that there were still a lot of gateway units still on the low ground, but just the Immortals got recalled, and MaNa, he didn't really use the opportunity to like try and escape out of there or blink any of his stuff down, because I guess if the War Prism goes down, right, the sentries are all going to be stuck there. They have to basically fight at that point, but MaNa now down a lot of supply after that.
Yeah, and this Stargate transition from Hellraiser is interesting to say the least. MaNa's gonna scout this third. He is taking a third of his own and is actually way far ahead in that regard. And another blink forward, this time around successful right away in picking off one of those Void Rays, an Observer, and a second Void Ray. So this blink forward with less units, less likely to work, but it's gonna work out well for MaNa, who might have to recall out now because yeah, here comes everything else.
Yeah, only loses, I guess, 2 Stalkers in the end, as this other Stalker is going to eventually go down. He almost gets a probe. He's still keeping it alive and just being annoying. This is actually really, really nicely done so far. I don't know that I think that MaNa has really brought himself fully back from that previous fight that he took, but I mean, he really, really got a lot of value from that attack.
He really did, yeah, and I can't blame Hellraiser too much for it, because who expects that second blink? I mean, the first one failed so hard, and that's where MaNa had more units and Hellraiser had less units. So the second blink forward here was very unexpected, I think. This Observer getting picked off from Hellraiser for the second time, I want to say, is also pretty painful.
Yeah, still, Hellraiser has a very scary army coming on out, and MaNa is only just now really adding on other forms of tech to help deal with this, with the Templar Archives now coming on out. 6 High Templars getting warped in. Presumably, I think it's going to be for Archons. Yeah. I think when you get into really high numbers of Void Rays, you can go for Storm, and it basically is it's like weirdly Storm acts less as about doing a bit of damage to the Void Rays and more about reducing Void Ray damage, because the Void Rays have to move out of the Storm. So they're not attacking during that short period of time that they're on like the prismatic alignment. So I wouldn't mind seeing MaNa think about that if you can afford it at some point.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that Storm is actually great against Void Rays, because they tend to clump up, right? And not only do they tend to clump up, but they also fly. So that means there's units usually that fit under them. Whereas, you know, if they were a ground unit, even if they were the smallest ground unit, they A, couldn't clump up as much, and B, they couldn't have units on top of them. So, or I guess they could have flying units on top of them, but you know what I'm saying. They couldn't have other ground units on top of them. So Void Rays are great to Storm, I think, and it's something that we really don't see very often at all.
Yeah, I feel like there. God, what was the map? Not Golden Wall. It was the very, very like often played map. It had like a very golden-y Protoss kind of ground. I remember Estrella versus Neeb happened on that map, and I feel like there was an era where there were Void Rays and like the Sky Toss transitions coming really popular in PvP also there. I feel like there was a short period of time where Protoss players kind of started using like Storm and stuff against that. So hopefully MaNa.
I know exactly what map you're talking about, but I can't think of the name. It was pretty recent, right? Like two map pools ago, maybe, or
I mean,
maybe
yeah, it was literally like last year, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It had gold in the name, right? Gold.
It may have, yeah. You know, I'm blanking on it, but I mean, it doesn't seem like that actually is going to be MaNa's transition point. He's going to do something that I have honestly not seen work very often. He is going to do the later Stargate transition, where he basically tries to play. Actually, is he going to go into Phoenix? Actually, that is one thing that I've seen sometimes work against mass void raises. Surprisingly enough, Phoenix actually don't do too terribly against a lot of Void Rays. You'll actually notice this a lot in team games, but right now it's just the Oracle. We'll see what he's actually going to start making from those Stargates.
Yeah, I mean, it could be Tempest or Carriers as well, but I wouldn't mind Phoenix's either. I'm not sure what he's going to be going, but I'm liking MaNa's position more and more with those Archons as well. So at the same time, Hellraiser does have the great equalizer in those Disruptors. If they land good shots, MaNa mainly has just a ground army until those carriers or until those Void Rays of his own. Now that's the last choice that I would have thought he was going for, to try and match the Void Ray numbers.
Yeah, that's a really dangerous game to play. And it's actually just reminding us it was Eternal Empire we're thinking about. But
yes,
yeah, like
thank you.
Even during those days, I saw many options back in the days of Eternal Empire where Protoss players are trying to make this kind of stuff work. And actually, what MaNa is doing right now is one of the things that I've seen gradually start to pick away at that count. And you keep the once the Protoss player that's going for Sky Toss tries to go to 4 bases, their Void Rays, even with how fast Void Rays move, do have a hard time reacting and defending all 4 of the different locations. So the Blink Stalkers can kind of poke in, get little pickoffs, blink out, and continue to just harass and keep them at home for a bit. But basically, you're trying to like keep them on a low economy. I'm really not sure how well this is going to work out with like the carrier transition and stuff. But you know, MaNa, he's the much more experienced player than I am, so I'll trust his gut on this.
Yeah, and he's working off of 5 bases as well, so he's kind of playing CVP almost, right? Like where he's gonna have the lower tech, the lesser army, so to say, but the better economy as well. So Hellraiser on the other side, he's not able to establish his 4th yet, so he's gonna need to consolidate his army and kind of go for a one devastating punch. So we expect that when they fight, Hellraiser should be able to take the fight. It's just a matter of how decisively he takes the fight and where he takes the fight on the map as well. Because if it's on his side of the map, then MaNa will have time to react, will have time to remax, and he certainly has the economy given enough time. So we'll see what Hellraiser is going to opt to do. He is probably waiting to get maxed, and then I think we're going to see a big clash.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely excited to see how MaNa's going to be able to try and play this out. He's going to try and shut down this 4th base again. I think he's going to be able to get the kill or cancel over here. Really well done. I cannot stress how important it is that MaNa is canceling and keeping that 4th base from going up, because at this point in the game, you know, we're 16 minutes in, main base is mined out. Like, there's no more gas coming in over there from the main base of Hellraiser. The natural expansion is about halfway through or more than halfway through the gas count there. It's really just like half of your natural and your 3rd left over. And if you want to ever replenish these like small units that get picked off, you need to have a 4th base up. But MaNa, if he keeps finding these little trades, like even these Stalkers just knocking out some of the cannons over here, I actually think there's maybe one more option available. If if Hellraiser just gives up and says, I'm going to go for a big attack, you can actually turn this into like a quasi-base trade. I mean, how long is it going to take for Hellraiser to go across the map, knock out all of the bases and everything, while MaNa just kills off the 2 remaining mining bases?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all, actually. I think that's one of the very strong options that MaNa has. Things are looking better and better for him, but also remember that Hellraiser doesn't just have the higher tech and army value, but also has less workers, which means he also has a considerable advantage in terms of supply. So yeah, I don't know how MaNa's going to play this out. It's a strange game because it looks like MaNa has been dominating, and in terms of income, if we look at the income graph, it's always going to have been in favor of MaNa for the last few minutes. So yeah, let's see it. I mean, Hellraiser's max now. I think he has to make something happen now.
Yeah, I don't really know if waiting around longer to get up a bank to rebuild your army is going to be a good idea. I guess it might work out okay, but well, yeah, here's going to come the move out over here. Is MaNa going to try and take this head on, or is he going to try and just circumvent it and move around? I really feel like MaNa has a lot of these ground units that are not going to do quite as well, but I guess the Archons, hey, they can get underneath those Void Rays, both tanking the shots from the carriers and the Void Rays for a little bit, but also just dealing some big AoE splash damage to the air that might not be the worst thing in the world. I also just want to confirm, does MaNa have an observer? Does he have detection over here for this mothership? Okay, he does.
He does now. And now the both of the disruptors have missed, however, so MaNa's gonna engage here. This is where Hellraiser does want to engage. He will most likely win this fight like we were saying, but it's a matter of how hard he will win it. So let's see what happens here as both armies are now clashing. Hellraiser pulling a little bit ahead in supply, but is it enough? As MaNa's already warping in additional units, Stalkers this time around from his remaining bank. The Immortals move on forward and they're gonna start doing some work themselves, and Hellraiser has completely crushed this army.
Yeah, this is really, really brutal to watch. Void Rays, for those who don't know, with the prismatic alignment, will massacre carriers. You really need the extra supporting things. I think Storm can be one of those decent options.
Yeah.
I think that MaNa was trying to use the Archons a bit, but actually the Archons, I think their first 2 attacks went off on the Interceptors, not on the Void Rays or the carriers that were clumped up. So it became really difficult. Now MaNa's going to try and go for the base tree, but I feel like if he wanted to do this, if he had done this while the move out was happening, I don't think that all those cannons and the shield batteries would have been there. So this is going to be like trading 1 base for 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's so difficult to quantify as well how much army your opponent has exactly. And we know here that Hellraiser stopped at something like 58 workers, now down to 54. So, but MaNa might have thought, I made so many carriers, right? I did this thing where maybe, if MaNa trades a little bit more effectively, if he chops down the army of Hellraiser to half, then all of a sudden it's not so brutal looking. But as it stands, I mean, that was the perfect location as well for Hellraiser to take the engagement. That is weird.
Yeah, MaNa is like, look, we have we're honorable men, right? We're not gonna involve civilians in this fight, right? My civilians can still go and participate in your country's economy, right? Finds 2 carriers by the cost of a lot of stalkers that, frankly, MaNa cannot really afford to lose right now. And okay, here's the thing, Pats, is MaNa is trying to respond with the carriers and the Void Rays, and I think it's already I'm gonna give credit to MaNa here. There are no real great answers at this point.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I almost wish that he was going into more units that could do these kind of hit and run tactics than try and take on a head-on fight, because I just don't see that working.
Yeah, I completely agree with you if you're gonna stay in the game at all. But I mean, there isn't really a good answer at this point. There isn't really anything that he can do to win this game, I think. Short of Hellraiser really just messing up or staying for a long while. So here comes Hellraiser, and he's gonna look to close things out. It was that one punch, that one deciding engagement that decided this game, and kind of like a strange, a weird game, a game of chicken rabbit. Here's all the carriers and all the Void Rays duking it out. MaNa does have a lot of Void Rays, and you talked about how strong those are, but they're not gonna be strong enough this time around, and Hellraiser will equalize.
Oh man, well, Cats, that is a really, really good game there from Hellraiser, really capitalizing on that playstyle of using those Void Rays to the best of his ability and just getting to that big Sky Toss army. It's okay, there's a lot of frustration for any Protoss player that has tried saying, I'm going to defeat the Sky Toss army with not Sky Toss. It's really difficult. It's really difficult. And I think that Hellraiser did a great job getting there, despite the fact that he constantly had his 4th base canceled and everything. Even though Hellraiser was running into a lot of roadblocks there with MaNa expanding and doing all this other stuff, Hellraiser really did a nice job actually still getting to that big army and everything, capitalizing on it. But guys, we're going to go to a short break before we move into game number 3. You guys are watching the DreamHack SC2 Masters Summer. Don't go anywhere. And we're back and ready to move into game number 3 of our exciting PvP series as we are tied up 1-1 in our first match of the day here in Group D, MaNa versus Hellraiser. It's been a pretty interesting series so far, I would say, Cats.
To say the least, this could very well be a 2-0 Hellraiser. It felt like Hellraiser was winning the first game, and then he lost. And then it felt like MaNa was winning the second game, and then he lost. But the cool thing about Hellraiser winning that second game is that you Protoss players at home who don't know what to do in PvP, I mean, like these guys are obviously great players and all, but I think you can do that. I'm pretty sure you can do what Hellraiser did, because he really didn't do anything for a while, right? Like he just kind of sat back and made a very strong army, and MaNa just didn't have the answer. So spawning in the bottom right-hand side for Team Liquid, it is MaNa.
And spawning up here, top left-hand side of the map, we have the red Protoss player. He is Hellraiser.
Playing a very patient game. It's such a scary game to play because in StarCraft, when you're falling behind economically all the time, it feels terrible, right, Ravi? When your fourth is getting delayed, I mean, you can feel like, oh, I gotta do something to equalize. What Hellraiser did last game was he really understood what his win condition was, and he played to it. He was just consistent with it. He knew he had to get maxed. As soon as he gets maxed, he says, my army's gotta be stronger. I didn't make that many probes. Sure, I didn't have a fourth, but even if I had a fourth, I couldn't have mined it because I had 58 probes total or something like that, right? So
yeah,
he was always gonna have a stronger army than MaNa and capitalized perfectly. I
completely agree, and I think that is really the strength of the style that Hellraiser was also playing there, and he did a great job, using that. I do want to say, Cats, and like every single person who's been in this situation in StarCraft knows this feeling. Like it's something you have to just experience for yourself in StarCraft. When you are playing a game and you are up like 2 or more bases on your opponent, and you lose from there, it is just one of like, even if all the logic dictates, like, yes, of course it made sense. Like I had more workers than my opponent and we were both maxed out and they had a better army supply and stuff. Like even when you know all the facts in your head, there's just something innate built into us that I think comes from years and years of Idra promoting macro and like blah, 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 like make sure Team Liquid forums giving all the advice, just make sure you're taking bases and expanding probes and pylons. Like you feel like I did everything right. I took bases, I expanded, I built up an army, I spent my money, and still I couldn't do it. Like, you know that's not all of it, but something just feels so tough about it. It's a hard mental blow.
It really is, because it just means that you didn't do the right thing. It was just on you, pretty much. Your opponent was playing a game against himself or against he was basically playing versus environment, right? PvE. And then he moves out when he moves out. So it's all up to you to capitalize on that. And MaNa wasn't able to. Now, how could he have? I mean, there's never an easy answer because you're gonna lose that straight up fight. For me, like I said, position, very important, right? Fight where your shield batteries are if you want to fight on your side of the map. Otherwise, take a fight on the other side of the map so you have actually time to use that economic advantage to replenish your army with reinforcements, essentially, right? Like reinforce, rebuild your army, and then maybe you can take a second fight and win.
Yeah, we wanted to talk about all that to make sure and say like, hey, I hope that MaNa is feeling good moving into game number 3. You still played a pretty solid game overall in both game 1 and 2, but we do have the Dark Shrine coming out over here for Hellraiser, and the proxy pylon doesn't get scouted. MaNa came so close with one of his stalkers, and I think when you see that proxy pylon coming down at this time, like, it can be a big alarm bell. Like, wait a second, but
oh my god,
finds a lot of the adepts.
This is no. This is perfect for the adepts. I think. Oh no, the shade will be cancelled. So good reaction time for MaNa turning around. I thought that was gonna be just about perfect because these adepts are just meant to buy time and kind of distract MaNa. So if Hellraiser can get into MaNa's mineral line and now he will go on forward, it's very likely that MaNa will not be paying attention to the DTs, which really are the fatal blow that Hellraiser's looking for.
There's so many adepts, you can't just have like a one shield battery or a pylon to wall. You actually need a lot more. Now, the Warp Prism is going to help MaNa bypass the force fields and everything over here, but this is turning into a weird base trade. But there's a big difference over here, Cats. One of these players is going to be base trading with DTs on the map soon.
Yes, and you know DTs better than just about anyone in the world, Ravi. And here it is. There is a Dark Templar. There is no Observer. Yeah, but there's one DT out. We chilling.
Yeah.
We chilling. One DT is all it takes. So Roddy actually was singing the one kiss is all it takes the entire time in between breaks.
That's an observer out.
That's what just came to mind. Okay, if the observer can actually... Oh, now we're talking, Ravi. Actually, that observer did make it across. And now it's a little bit different of the situation because now we have stalkers trading against the likes of probes. The adepts are doing fantastic on the other side of the map. But I mean, if it's stalkers against adepts, the stalkers are going to win. Now, adepts and probes against stalkers, the adepts might actually stand a chance. We are seeing the final moments of this game one way or another. I'm not sure who's going to win. Good target fire from MaNa, and Hellraiser is doing exactly what he needs to do, which is just about attack move. But is it enough? He needs to target fire the red stalkers with one shot of those adepts at a time. It's so very close, Ravi.
Oh, I think MaNa is making it happen, though.
Is he?
Yeah, I mean, he's killed so many of the probes over here, and back at home, he's actually been able to get mining back up. He still has his warp gates available, so there's nothing to attack his warp prism. He can actually start warping in more stalkers or even zealots soon.
Yeah, these shield batteries are still doing a little bit of work, though, especially with the overcharge. And the Hellraiser does have a slight worker lead at the moment. That Nexus is not going to help him out too much at all, however, but if he is able to stabilize here, he will win because he will have that extra Nexus. So it's up to Hellraiser. He warps in additional 2 stalkers. The shield batteries are nearly depleted of their energy, and more of those probes are having to be pulled off the line here to soak up shots. MaNa actually missed target firing onto that shield battery for a second there. But yeah, I mean, this is still looking pretty good. Now MaNa will be able to stabilize potentially even if he's not able to end the game. This is crazy.
Oh my god, MaNa's doing a great job. He's doing the pickups to dodge the stalker shots, but more stalkers coming in over here for Hellraiser. Hellraiser clinging to hope over here. All of his probes are off the line. He's not going to have any reinforcements for a while. Oh, he finally does push MaNa back, but he is now down 8 workers.
Yeah, and with these 3 stalkers from MaNa, who only has added 1 additional worker in that entire time, I like it, right? Like, he's using his money to try and push on fourth, and now there isn't any more energy available on those shield batteries. The Nexus still has enough energy for a potential overcharge, and there it is. But is it going to be enough? Actually, that warp prism in range of those stalkers while the stalkers are still covered by the shield battery. It might end up falling, but not before both stalkers fall, and a Russian GG from the Ukrainian here.
Wow, what an action-packed game.